Welcome to This Week in Hastings Headline History, where we take a look back at what was making news in and around Hastings, Florida over a century ago. These stories are articles directly out of the pages of the Hastings Herald, which was published weekly in the early 1900s. It is fascinating to hear what they were talking about, as well as how they spoke in their articles from over 100 years ago. So sit back and enjoy as I share with you a few of the articles from this week in 1920. McGuire Fertilizer Company is in possession. The McGuire Fertilizer and Phosphate Company became the formal owners of the property of the Peninsular Fertilizer Company in Palatka on Thursday of this week, when the first payment was made and the holdings of the Peninsular Company were formally turned over to the McGuire Company. The property will serve the McGuire Company as a mixing plant and will pave the way to the establishment of a big acid chamber at a cost of approximately $1 million. The newly acquired property will be remodeled to some extent and will be equipped with a great deal of new and modern machinery. The work of equipping the plant will be started at once, contracts already being under consideration for some of the equipment and most of the rebuilding. When the alterations have been completed, the plant will have a capacity of 300 tons daily, which can be increased as necessity requires. It is one of the biggest projects ever launched in this vicinity, and one which grows bigger as opportunities for its development present themselves. The property purchased consists of 106 acres of land located near the north boundary line of Palatka on the Atlantic Coastline Railroad. Charlie Green destroys still. Marshal Charles E. Green, accompanied by a helper, made a trip into the country on Friday night of last week and destroyed a still which was found in full operation. Owing to the fact the men who were operating the still had a number of dogs on guard, the approach of the officers was discovered through the barking of the dogs, and the men made their escape. A 20-gallon still was discovered with between 2 and 3 gallons of mash and 5 gallons of finished shine. The still was demolished with an axe, the mash spilled, and the shine burned. The officers feel virtually sure of the identity of the men who were operating the still, but Marshal Green states the actual proof against the suspects is lacking, owing to the vigilance of their watchdogs. Local notes from Anastasia Island. One of the great sports on Anastasia Island just at present is turtle egg hunting. 3 automobiles loaded with a merry crowd left J.L. Middleton's cottage on Saturday last to try their luck. Although no eggs were found, there was a lot of fun hunting them, and on account of the beautiful moonlight making the night so bright, they had a splendid chance to view the wreck of the Minerva near Crescent Beach and have a long talk with the captain. Catching rats. A crusade against rats has opened in St. Augustine as the result of suggestions by the State Board of Health and by the city health officer. As evidence that there are rats in St. Augustine, a merchant doing business on Granada Street caught 15 rodents in one trap Monday night, and in the same trap last night caught 8. Local hardware dealers report the greatest demand for and sale of rat traps they have ever known since in business here. An appeal for safety first is issued by FEC. Vice President J.P. Beckwith with the Florida East Coast Railway Company has asked the Hastings Herald to publish the following message to employees and the public. An employee of a barrel factory located just east of the water tank at East Palatka attempted to board the steamer train in order to ride up to the station. His foot slipped under the wheels of one of the cars, causing severe injuries to his toes, which were badly mashed, necessitating amputation of at least 3 of them. This man might have been killed, but fortunately, he will only lose a few toes as a result of his failure to think of the risk he was taking. Fixed road and bridge. A party of gentlemen wearing striped trousers visited Hastings early this week and repaired the numerous washouts in the Palatka Road between the Dixie Highway and the Cracker Branch bridges. Several holes in the bridges were also patched and repaired temporarily to the relief of local auto and wagon drivers. Thousands on Hastings streets during rush resulted in no serious disorders. With the close of the present potato season and the resumption of normal conditions in this town, attention is being directed toward the excellent order that was the general rule throughout the period. Hundreds and thousands of strangers poured into and through Hastings daily. None of the anticipated disturbances took place, the business of the season having been conducted with remarkable order and smoothness. Marshal Charles E. Green calls attention to past seasons when disorder of every description held full sway. In contrast to the present season, He cites conditions several years ago during the time B.L. Brown was mayor and several saloons were open in Hastings. On one Monday morning in that year, he states, there were 38 cases of violation of the various liquor laws in the mayor's court. Arrest for charges of that nature during the season just passed mounted to not more than 8 or 10 for the entire season. Furthermore, this season there have been no killings, few fights which were of a minor character, and little trouble of any kind. Speaking generally, the season has been an agreeable surprise to the local police and town authorities. Now it's time for Talk of the Times, where I give you a glimpse of what people were talking about over 100 years ago. This week, we're talking cars, or at least the paper was. They posted a series of statistics on automobiles in the United States in 1920. Oh, what a different time it was. The article reads, Facts about the auto industry. The automobile industry is now the 5th largest industry in the United States. Cars registered total 7,523,664, or 10 for every one there was in 1911. The value of automobiles and trucks now in service is estimated at $3.7 billion. There are now 3 automobiles to every railroad freight car. Automobiles are doing about twice as much passenger traffic as the railroads. About 2.7 million, or nearly 3% of the total population of the United States, make their living from the automobile business. Current production is at the rate of about 2,973 cars yearly. The average price, $745. The automobile now requires about 509,250,000 pounds of crude rubber per annum and 2,011,000,000 gallons of gasoline. I hope you enjoyed this week's edition of Hastings Headline History. This podcast was brought to you by Presenting the Past, bringing history back to the present through historic presentations and the sale of treasures from days gone by. This episode was written and produced by me, Michelle Murillo, with the aid of vintage copies of the Hastings Herald. Now it's time for this week's musical memory, when we listen back to a song that everyone was listening to over 100 years ago. As the 4th of July is coming up, let's listen to a song related to the founding of this country. It is a song that was written in 1876. It's a Christian hymn that was written specifically to mark the centennial of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The lyrics for the song were written by Daniel C. Roberts, but his name is not always connected to the song. You see, when he wrote it, he sent it to the Episcopal Church General Convention for consideration in their book of future hymns. He penned the words to go along with a Russian hymn and sent it in anonymously, saying he would give his name if it were chosen to be used. It was chosen, but instead of chasing down the name of the writer, the commission doing the selection just noted it was written by anonymous. Later, when organist George Warren of New York and church hymnal editor Reverend Tucker were commissioned to select a hymn to celebrate the centennial, they chose Roberts' anonymous lyrics and Warren penned new music for it. When it was published in the late 1800s, it was published with Warren's name attached. It has been recorded a number of times over the years, but the most famous recording is probably by the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Here is their version of God of Our Fathers.